tip.
I was able to get data from credit card payment system providers on charge sales and charge tips in restaurants across states. And what I find is the smaller the wages servers are paid, the higher the percentage tip.
In other words, he found that people know their tips are how workers get paid, so they tip more when they know workers are being paid less. In that same Bankrate survey, 41% of people said businesses should pay their employees better rather than relying so much on tips. But in practice, people don't like that.
I've done the research where I give people hypothetical menus, one where they have regular prices and at the bottom it says a customary tip of 15 to 20% is appreciated. One where they say tipping's not allowed, you can't tip, but their menu prices are 15% higher.
He then asked people how expensive they thought the restaurant was. People overwhelmingly thought the menu with the 15% higher prices was more expensive than a menu where they would tip 15% or more anyway. Other menus that stated an 18 or 15% gratuity would be automatically added were also viewed as more expensive.
We're not rational. We're cognitive misers. We don't like to add all of the factors together and make logical, rational comparisons. We do quick and dirty heuristics.
It's called price partitioning. You see it with hotel listings or concert tickets, with all kinds of fees tacked on at the end.
Partitioning prices often makes things seem less expensive than if you were to build all of the cost and be upfront in one big price.
Which is one of the reasons you're seeing tipping just about everywhere now.
Post-COVID, we've experienced inflation and full employment. And service establishments have to compete for employees, which means paying them more. But paying them more requires them to raise prices, and customers are already facing inflation. And so what's a business to do? And I think that tipping is a way to address that problem. A good faith effort on the part of businesses to say, I need to pay my employees more, but I don't want to raise my prices too much on you guys.
So, are people really tipping 20% for self service or counter service? According to that Bankrate study, the vast majority of people are still always tipping servers or waitstaff at a sit down restaurant. From what we've learned from Dr. Lin's studies, probably in part because they know those workers depend on tips. But when getting coffee, not as many. When picking up takeout, even fewer.
So just because someone's asking for a tip doesn't mean it's customary, doesn't mean everyone else is giving. The new technology kind of hides from us what the actual behavioral norms are.
Tipping was seen as un-American even in the 1800s. In the 1900s, polls showed Americans wanting to get rid of tipping. Today, 2/3 of Americans have a negative view of tipping. But it's so ingrained into American price models and policies that tipping is probably here to stay. But where and how much you tip is still up to you.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Speak Your Mind. We are here live, and if you're watching us now from anywhere in Canada, anywhere in the world, we welcome you to this program where you, the viewer, can give us your opinion, can speak the most uncensored, unfiltered mind that you have right there in your, as we say in Spanish, cerebro. I'm not by myself, but I have with me Miss Lupita, and I also have with me Miss Audrey. That is Miss Audrey. I just noticed the difference in skin tone. How you doing, Miss Audrey?
Good evening, Pastor. I'm well, thank you. And welcome all to another episode. I'd like to announce, as always, our Telegram poll that we always have going on, that you can scan the QR code and vote on the following. As our topic is today, the tipping culture. If you believe, what is your perspective on this matter? Let us know what you think. The tipping culture, is it reaching the tipping point? Do you think that you got to give them that 20%? Do you tip accordingly to the service? Or who ordered gratuity? So let us know what you think and vote on the following.
I think we have the image right there on the screen. I don't know if we can fill it. Also, I have with me Miss Lupita. Miss Lupita, good evening. How you doing?
Good evening. I'm doing very well. We are here ready to read everyone's comments as well. So you could definitely send us a message at the number that's going to appear right there on your screen, 437-233-9815, or even call us to give your phone call notes, even appear right now on air with us, as we're going to have our people speaking about their mind on this topic.
1-877-785-8700. I have with me now Vince, I believe, on the phone. Let's see if we can connect him right now. Vincent, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hello?
yeah, I could hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. We're asking everybody the following question. If you think tipping culture, which is what they call it now, has gone or is going a little too far. What's your opinion on tipping?
Well, my opinion, this fact, is that this tipping, I normally tip according to the service. If the service is good, high quality, they shouldn't even be asking for a tip. The tip is coming their way. But I feel like there's places that it's already going too far. They're taking it a little too far, because you're gonna purchase something, or even like a coffee or something, and they just throw that question on you. Like they put this big screen, like, oh, 50%, 20%. I just feel like that's a little comfortable.
Did you say
And it's
50%? 50% or 15%? Hello, Vincent?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Did you say 50% or 15%?
I mean, it all depends if like, for example, if I go to a place and, they serve me right, they give me what I was looking for, they were attentive, and, they ask for, like, let's say 15, 20, and, you could hit a 20%, 15%. But places like, for example, you're going to just pick up, or you're going to just, like, you're gonna pick up something. You're not even gonna eat. You're not even gonna dine in the place, and they're already asking for that. I don't know. That's a little too far.
Now,
I don't roll with that.
Now, let's say, for example, you're getting a small coffee. Small coffee, let's say, for example, is $2. And then they give you the option 10, 15, 18. 10% of $2 is 20 cents. You really think 20 cents is going to affect you bad? Hello? Vince?
Yeah. Can you repeat that again? I really didn't quite hear you.
If, for example, you get a coffee that's $2, and then on the pad or whatever it is, there's 10%, 15%, 18%. 10% of $2 is 20 cents. Is 20 cents really going to go that much in your life?
I mean, when you were talking about a coffee, I mean, I wouldn't mind doing that, but I'm talking about like a big meal or something like that, But even like that, though, even like coffee, there's sometimes that I go and no, I just put no tip. No. Because I'm it's like, it's just me. It's just, I feel like that's when they're reaching their point, like, for a coffee, you're going to tip for a coffee? No, come on now. You didn't even do nothing. You could get coffee anywhere.
Vince, thank you so much for speaking your mind. Have a good night, okay?
All right, you too.
Take care. Now, the question we ask you guys who are on the other side of your screen, do you always need to tip? I want you to pay close attention to this video, and we'll be right back.
Do you ever find yourself wondering, when did it get so hard just to figure out tipping? Where should you tip? How much? That's because more places than ever before are asking you to leave a tip. You know those prompts on card payment machines? It's happening at coffee shops, some stores, takeout spots.
The gas station, Subway, laundromat, everywhere.
Places you might never even have thought about tipping before. It's called tip creep.
These days, I'm like, do I have to give you a $2 tip just for takeout?
And there's also tipflation, where those numbers on those prompts are getting higher and higher. We're talking like 18, 20, 30%, putting it on you, the customer, to pick a number or say no, all in front of the person who's serving you.
Sometimes I just get like that look from the waiter, and it's a little intimidating.
It can all be uncomfortable, but do you really have to tip everywhere you go now? And with the cost of living so high, how do you navigate all this? So we could tip 15, 20, 30%. The advice from personal finance expert Barry Choi is pretty simple. Do you, but it kind of depends on where you are.
Normally, I wouldn't tip at a coffee shop, but I do recognize that tip inflation is a thing. I'm going to go with the custom amount. We had 2 lattes. I think $1 is fair. So I just typed in $1 and we're going to just hit pay.
Do you feel guilty when you don't hit one of those amounts?
Not necessarily, because when you think about it, the dollar was still about 10 to 12%. So we're still tipping. It's just not at 15%.
Remember the old school tip jar on the counter that maybe you just ignored? Thank you. Barry says to think of digital tip prompts in places like coffee shops the same way. Optional.
If you didn't pay a tip in the past for these services, don't be afraid to hit the 0 and okay. Figure out what number makes sense for you and for the type of service you're getting.
Does it make you a bad consumer if you don't tip at all when you go and get a coffee or you go to a bakery?
I don't think it makes you a bad consumer if you're in a coffee shop or getting takeout, but some people will probably disagree with me.
But when it comes to table service, restaurant dining, where tip prompts are higher than ever, well, that's a lot less optional.
15%, I'm going to say pre-tax, at least that's what my belief is. It really comes down to your budget.
Hi, Rubina, can you hear me?
Rubina Ahmed Haq, another personal finance expert, says start thinking even higher.
Restaurants and bars, 18% may become the minimum, and then that will just be part of what people budget before they go out.
A lot of Canadians are already tipping higher than that. The tech company Square? You've probably seen their white card payment machines checking out of places before. Well, it says the average tip on its platform in Canada is now 20%. That's 4% higher than the 16% it was before the pandemic.
We became more generous, but that's now crept into some places where it can be annoying.
So tipping more and more often can be tough, especially with inflation. But you also need to think about minimum wage because that's what most service workers are paid, and it's just not keeping up with the rising cost of living. Look at Ontario. The general minimum wage is $15.50, but a living wage, what someone would need to actually cover their basic expenses, would be $23.15 for a worker in the Greater Toronto Area. In British Columbia, the minimum wage is $15.65, but a living wage for a worker in Vancouver would be $24.08. And in Nova Scotia, the minimum wage is $13.60, but a living wage for someone in Halifax would be $23.50, almost $10 higher. Barista Vincent Garcia says tips are huge for workers like him.
People who work in the customer service industry are underpaid or paid minimum. So even getting some extra, few bucks an hour as tips, it makes all the difference.
But is there a way around all of this? Some restaurants have totally done away with tipping, paying their employees a living wage instead of minimum and telling customers not to leave a tip. In a recent survey, 59% of Canadians say they prefer that model, even if it means higher menu prices. So we're here at Beef Pizza in Toronto that does just that.
Everyone in every position gets paid the same. We do factor that into the costs of what we offer, which doesn't really impact the menu that much.
And so what reaction do you see from customers when they come in and see no tipping on your menu?
I mean, no tipping, no one thinks that's a bad thing. Why should we expect people to pay other people's salary instead of a business? And also working in kitchens for a long time and seeing the inequality of tips with front of house, ethnicity, race, sex, age, all that stuff. I think it does lend itself to definitely more of a teamwork feeling.
Have you ever thought about the fact that maybe you could make more money if you were getting tips?
You're not going to have a night where you make $400 or $500. You're not going to have those crazy, amazing nights, but you're also never going to have a bad night. I'm very confident that levels out over time.
Just knowing with confidence that I can make my rent every month, that's huge for me.
But at most places, tipping is still the norm, and tip creep will just keep on creeping.
I don't know which I should tip.
There's a minimum, there's a maximum. It's a lot of math involved.
Bottom line here, how do people survive tip creep, tip inflation?
Again, just look at your overall budget and think about where you're spending money. So if you're worried about the tips, maybe dining out, eating out, shopping less is part of your overall budget. If you're comfortable tipping 15%, you should definitely do that. That said, if you're going out to eat and you can't afford a tip, maybe you got to rethink about what your goals are.
So, Ellen, there's a lot of good information in there. I don't want to ask you for more tips. I'm not going to do that, but I do want to ask for a little bit more advice for people who are watching.
Well, one is to carry cash for tips so you don't have to pick a number and play around with the machine. And also remember, those tip prompts, the preset amounts, generally include the tax. So if you pick one, you're tipping on the tax as well. Also, say you go to the coffee shop and you want to leave a tip for that lovely cup of coffee someone made you, but you also buy a bag of coffee beans. Or you go to your hairstylist, you want to tip the stylist, but you also buy the shampoo. Unless those things are rung out separately, those tip prompts also include those amounts as well. So that's why experts say to pick the custom amount. That way you can ensure you're tipping on just the service and not any extra stuff.
I like the cash advice. Ellen Morrow, thank you.
You're welcome.
And we're back with all of you. And Lupita, as someone who used to work in a bakery, who used to not live off tips, but we always appreciated tips. We always had the certain mindset that we didn't have to obligate you to give, but if our service was really good, if our service left a mark on you, then you give us a 5, you give us a 10. Out of the order that you had of $20, $30, $50, you would slip us a 5. I remember one time when I was working in the bakery, it was Thanksgiving. A man came in and he said he wanted 4 dozen cupcakes. First and foremost, to make 4 dozen cupcakes is a lot. But I remember we made sure we made this man all the cupcakes he wanted. And what did he leave us? A $30 tip. So, good customer service, it goes a long way. But if you have any comments regarding our topic, let me know.
Yes, so we have Elisa here that says, I stopped at Baskin-Robbins last week for an ice cream cone, and I was given the tip screen with the option of tipping from 20% to 35%. I declined. The woman at the counter rolled her eyes and said how rude I was. Won't be going back to that Baskin-Robbins again. They pay their workers at least minimum wage. It was a single ice cream cone scoop. I worked there in high school, where getting a quarter in the tip jar was a success. I'm not giving them $2 extra for an ice cream cone. So that's her first comment.
She got a single scoop?
Yeah, a single scoop.
Who's the Baskin-Robbins for a single scoop? What
This is
are you
true.
doing? Go to like
Stay home.
McDonald's. And Mrs. Audrey, if this person wants to join our Telegram poll, if they want to get in on the action, they want to give us their vote, how can they do that?
Yes, Pastor, they can go ahead and scan the QR code as it appears on the screen and vote on the following. As we have been talking about this subject, right? The tipping culture, how it is nowadays. We have many people that are also commenting, and I'd like to share a comment myself that says like this. Kaden, she says, as a person who works in the food service, I only tip if I'm being waited on like a restaurant. My mom always taught me to tip 20% at the minimum, and she always does when we go out. At Starbucks, for a takeout, I don't tip. I had to teach my mom not to feel guilty about those tipping options now because she feels bad, and it really adds up fast if you think about it. And we also have Lewis that says like this. It's sad that most people feel like they need to tip out of fear of social embarrassment or fear of a service worker spitting in their food. I tip based on both. Do they really deserve a tip, or if it's just because of the potential outcome?
Now,
I would,
Miss
sorry.
Audrey, I'm so sorry to cut
Yes.
you off. When you go out with your husband, do you tip? Be honest.
He does. I'm going to be honest.
That hesitation right there.
He does. I am not so much of a tipper just because of the fact, just depends, right? I'm going to be honest. I'm not the best, but it depends. It depends on what we get. Like if we go in a restaurant, okay. But if it's like, we talk about getting coffee or, at Starbucks or fast food restaurants, even like Uber Eats sometimes, honestly, I don't really tip because usually they'll take late with the food or they'll, there's always something wrong in it. So I usually don't do it because I haven't seen situations where, being a good tipper, it results in good outcomes. Sometimes it's even if you are the good tipper, you don't get what you're asking for. So honestly, it just depends for me.
I'm going to put a disclaimer on the bottom that Mrs. Audrey's opinions does not reflect on the opinion of Speak Your Mind and everybody that has to do with this show. So if you work in customer service, please, that is all on her. It has nothing to do with us. She looks like she doesn't tip, but it's all right. It's no problem. I'm just glad. I'm going to be very honest. McDonald's doesn't have a tip jar. Forget about it. We'd be out dry. But I have Nicholas with me on the phone right now. Let's see if we can connect him. Nicholas, can you hear me?
Hello, yes, I can hear you.
Nicholas, we're asking everybody the following question about tipping. about tipping culture. Number one, I didn't know tipping culture was a thing, but do you think nowadays in the restaurants, the coffee shops, do you think they're already passing their limit, or what's your opinion on tipping?
I think we are reaching a point where tipping is now seen more and more as an option for different professions. Before, we would only tip, people that would serve us our food in a restaurant, the waiters, or a delivery guy, or barber, someone that is actually giving us a service, and tipping was just our way to show that person was the service good or not. But nowadays, I feel like companies and different professions, they want to add tipping as form of supplemental income. I don't believe anyone should tip a barista for making coffee, because that's the profession that person is doing. It's not like a waiter that gave you an entire experience.
I get you.
That's my thought.
Now, Nicholas, let's say, for example, you go to a cafe, they get you what drink do you usually get when you go? Whether it's coffee, tea, what do you get?
Regular coffee usually.
Perfect. Let's say they get you a regular coffee, and then they hit you with the perfect phrase. I don't know if you ever got this phrase. They say, you are just going to answer some questions on the iPad. And you got the 10%, the 15%, the 18%, or the custom. What do you do? Or do you just press skip?
Press skip.
Do you really press skip? You don't even put $1, you don't put 50 cents.
I think that's one of the sneakiest little inventions that these businesses like Square and all the credit card servicers made, because they know for every tip they're getting a percentage too. But no, that's ridiculous. And I see those screens everywhere. Like even if you go to Chip City and buy a cookie, they have
I know. Well,
over there.
Here in Toronto, there's no Shake Shack, but I know Shake Shack now, Lupita, just in case you didn't know. They ask you for tips now. And also, here in Toronto, Nicholas, what they have on their machines, they say enter tip percentage. So it's not even so much an amount anymore. Now you got to do a lot of math in a couple of seconds, and you got to reduce everything to a percentage. But who knows? Nicholas, thank you so much for speaking your mind, all right? Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Take care. We went to the streets of Toronto to also ask fellow, what would it be, Miss Audrey? Would it be Canadians, Torontonians? Would that be the phrase to use?
Well, Canadians, right, in general, because we have people coming from all over. As you'll see in an interview, there was someone even from Montreal. So, we have people from all over here in Toronto. So, Canadians
Perfect.
here.
To all the Canadians, we went to the streets here and we asked them the same thing. We'll be right back.
What is your experience with tipping? What do you think about the tipping service? Do you think it's necessary?
Very necessary. They give you a good service and you tip them. I always tip everywhere.
Coming from, like where I'm coming from, Nigeria, it's okay. I don't frequent restaurants, to be honest, so I won't say like it's not common, but I believe it's not as common as it is here. So it's not something I'm used to. But coming here, I believe some people feel it's something that should happen often. Like it's a conventional thing. You go to the restaurant, maybe a couple % of what you spend, you should give to the waiter. But yeah, I'm not used to it, so it's not normal for me.
I think that you should freely tip. It should not be included in whatever services that they rendered. I believe that based on the services that you receive, you tip based on the services, because some places you go, the servers, the waitress, or whatever, they're not that nice. So I wouldn't wish to tip them. But based on the services, if I receive very good services, they get nice tip.
In your opinion, what is a tipping service to you? Do you think it's necessary to always tip?
I think it depends really. Like if you go somewhere and then you see like workers working really hard, And it really depends. Like if that worker is like doing a good job, then I think you should tip. But generally, like if you go to restaurants or like the places where they're doing physical labor, I think that's where you need to tip. Like I think that's a necessity.
I don't like it. I don't like it. If I would have the chance to tip a person, I'd rather give it to the person who served me. Like I'm more comfortable with that rather than like it's on your card and then you have a choice like 10% and then it goes up and sometimes I am not like a tech person, so I have to ask like what is this? You are not given an option of not to tip. So you remove that freedom from me.
Yeah, I feel like the service someone renders usually like there'll be this emotional component to it that to push you that okay, like I feel like I should give them something. So let's say you get one outstanding service from someone, you will be low-key compelled to give a bit more than maybe you used to. So yeah, there are cases like that, but I feel it's just down to you. Like it's your choice. Like you shouldn't say okay because society says you have to, you should. So if it's something you like to do, do it. If it's not something, you could even be in a financial situation where you can't, but you feel because people say so, like you should be compelled to. So yeah, I feel it's down to whatever you want to do.
It depends on where you're tipping. So at like restaurants and stuff like that, I feel like it can have a positive impact, but when it comes to like delivery services, I feel like a lot more people are entitled to getting tips, even though sometimes the service for delivery prices like Uber and DoorDash aren't as good as if you went to like a restaurant.
So does it depend on what service is being given, on how much you're going to tip?
I always get $5. Taxis, I take a lot of taxis. Eat in restaurants. Yeah, my thing is $5 for now.
It's not, because now I don't have, tipping should be like you have a freedom to do so. If there's a good service, like you tend to put gift on the person who served you, okay? But then now it's sort of like enforced. Like sometimes we don't want to eat out because you're afraid like how much will they, sometimes you get like you will tip like $10 or something, and life is, you know, it prevents us from going out anymore. It's not like we don't want to help out those servers because they are just like me, like I'm doing per hour. And if even for me, if I did a good job, like it would be nice if somebody would tip me. But then again, now the tipping is not like the old ones wherein you get like cash and then whatever is like, you know, whatever you want to give in cash, like on the tray, will be given to the person who served you. I still like the old way.
And with the tips that are being given, do you think that it goes directly to the person, especially in restaurants or places like that, as it was before, where you used to personally give it to the person?
Not sure about that. But when I get my nails done, it goes right to them. My hairdresser always gets $5 tip, whatever, it goes to them. Restaurants is a little shaky. I'm not sure, but I still do it.
The owners of the restaurant or business would, you know, pay more to the service workers just so they wouldn't have to depend on tips as much as from the customers, so it wouldn't feel like the customers are basically being owed to pay the service workers just so they can make a living.
Have you ever experienced something where you didn't want to tip because of the service that was being given?
Yeah, I mean, if I go somewhere and then they're being rude to me and then they're not paying attention, and like I'm being really nice, and then they just, you know, be rude or like not listening to me, then I'd be like, I would rather eat, to be honest, or I would rather pay. I'll be like, yeah, I should just go somewhere and tip. No, obviously I would not tip.
So it's something that you've always done because something that you always.
I'm born in Montreal. You have to tip. No way out.
I like what that last girl said. She said that even if I'm not liking the service, I won't even eat. I promise you, I am like that. I definitely prefer service over even the greatest food that it can be. But when it's bad service, ooh, ain't nobody getting a tip from me. That skip button is going to be on repeat. Ms. Lupita, do we have any more comments?
Yeah, we have Kevin's comment that goes, a small business owner here. I did an experiment where I paid good wages and priced the menu accordingly. The experiment went downhill because nobody wants to pay a $12 burger without tip, but willing to pay $10 for a burger with a $2 tip, plus the added benefits of getting negative reviews and customer threats. So he's definitely one that tried to make the kind of the tipping culture a little bit better for himself, but it didn't work
He
out.
played himself. That's what happened. Small business owner played himself. That's what should have been his comment. Ms. Autry, if this person wants to keep continuing, because we are not done with our episode tonight, right?
Yes, Pastor, like we are running out of time on our program, but it's very interesting. We have a lot of people that are still commenting, so we want to get a chance to be able to read their comments. But until our next program, we want you all to stay tuned so that you can continue as well voting on our Telegram poll, that it's still going to go live. So you can go ahead and scan the QR code and let us know what you think, and we'll be announcing the results on our next program. So stay tuned.
And switching gears for a quick moment, maybe you're somebody who says, Pastor, the thing is, I live on tips because the way my bills, the way everything I have going on in my life, it's as if sometimes I can't afford to pay everything. Well, I promise you, Jesus, he says that he came to bring life and he came to bring it in abundance. And that abundance is what many should look for when it comes to living a life where your faith is active. And that's why we invite you this Sunday, 10 o'clock in the morning, in our gathering of faith in miracles. It's really simple. Just ask yourself, what have you been missing? And whatever it is that you have been missing, I promise you, Jesus, he can give you in abundance. Whether that be happiness, joy, peace, prosperity. So you have the opportunity. And if you want to, you can write this down. You can take a photo right now. We're located here in Toronto, 2420 Dufferin Street. We're right there on the corner of Bowie Avenue. We're about a block and a half from Eglinton Avenue. You can take the 29 bus, you can take the 929 bus, and you're going to end up right in front of our building. That's how we look. If you want, again, you can take a photo. You can put right now on your GPS. If you want, even tomorrow, you can come. Saturday, you can come. We're open every single day, Monday to Monday. We don't close. You have the opportunity to put an end to what has been limiting you from going forward. And don't forget, Jesus says he came to bring life, and so that we can have it in abundance. That's what he wants to give you. All right. I want you to pay attention to this story, how this person's reality was able to change. All right. See you tomorrow. God bless.
I had suicidal thoughts. I never tried to carry anything out, but just severe hopelessness. I couldn't be a wife to my husband. I was just unable to function on a daily basis, couldn't think, couldn't work very well. Well, the doctor told me it was a biochemical imbalance in my brain. All throughout the years, I've gone counseling, therapies, I've taken a series of medication, and it takes a while to get the right combination, cocktail of medications for depression. And so I've gone years in trying to get the right combination. And my combination worked for a while. It made me feel better. I was able to get up and do some things, but still not well, still knowing something is not right. People will tell you, just shake it off. You just have to have a strong mind. You just have to have a strong will. And I worked my way through college. I got a strong mind. I'm strong-willed. Still, something wasn't right, and I wasn't able to overcome it with medication. I wasn't able to overcome it with just reading my Bible. It was not enough for me. I continued to press and talk to Father God, to Jesus, and said to send me somewhere. I need to go somewhere to a deliverance church, someone who's specialized in this kind of thing. And I got on my phone and started searching for deliverance churches, deliverance ministries near me. And I came to a site that says the Universal Church. and met the pastors. It was on a Friday. It was Deliverance Day. The 10 o'clock service had just ended. I got there after 11, and they said, we just had service, but come in. First of all, I was floored that they were open on a Friday at 11. And I came in, I went in to talk to the pastor's assistant, and told them. They prayed for me, prayed with me, gave me blessed water, put me on a chain of prayer, and asked me to start coming into prayer meetings. And I did that. And little by little, I got better. I'm better now. And now I literally can say that I'm living. I'm in the process of, Father God is building my life, building me as a person, building me as a woman of God, building me as his daughter. And that started with me coming to remove that depression from me. I look at the Universal Church as being a school of faith, a school of life. My finances are good or better. They're much better. I am on a track. So I'm doing much better. We invite you to come to the Universal Church. The Universal Church is where I went to, just like a hospital, like going to a regular hospital. Literally, in my mind, I went to the hospital at the Universal Church. The Universal Church helped me with my depression, helped deliver me, and helped put me on the path that I'm on. And I am on a path of newness in life. So I would invite you and encourage you to do the same.